Hey everyone, in today's video we'll be taking a look at just how many buffs you can stack at once and what is currently the most amount of damage you can do with all those buffs applied. So I went ahead and loaded up the Prestige Nightfall, the Pyramidion, and did my testing here. For this test we'll be using the EP Sniper with a Void Energy mod so that we can stack its damage with Tractor Cannon. Some of the footage will sometimes flip-flop between Garden World and Pyramidion, but since they're both Prestige Nightfalls, I do the same damage in both. I forgot to test a regular no modifier Prestige run in the Pyramidion, so I did it in Garden World instead. And the damage from one shot without box breathing active is 4,181 damage. That's going to be our base damage number that we can use to figure out how much each buff is affecting our damage. It's the same exact damage I would do to Brachyon as well. This base damage has no modifiers impacting it and no buffs on top of it. So the first thing we have to test is how much do we hit for if we just have Void Singe active. One shot comes up as 5,226 damage, so all we have to do is take that number and subtract our base damage of 4,181 from it to get 1,045. Divide 1,045 by our base number again, and we get 0.2499 or 25%. Easy math, right? Except we can't look at all these buffs as percents, because you can't just add each buff together, you actually have to multiply. So if we're going to introduce more buffs on top of Void Singe, we'll need to change them to decimals. So a 25% buff from Void Singe would actually be 1.25 because we are doing our base damage plus an extra 25%. Now that we've covered that, let's introduce some more buffs. Next we'll add Heavyweight. So we have Void Singe, which is 1.25 times multiplier, and Heavyweight, and we hit 10,451 damage. This is double our previous 5,226 damage, so that means Heavyweight is a 2 times multiplier. So with Heavyweight and Void Singe combined, we multiply 2 by 1.25, and now our damage is being buffed by 2.5 times. See how it works? Next, we'll add Tractor Cannon. We hit for 15,676 damage, which means Tractor Cannon is a 50% buff, or 1.5 times. So we're up to 3.75 times damage already. Then we'll add Melting Point. We get 23,514 damage, which means that's an extra 1.5 times buff as well. Now we'll add Empowering Rift to the mix. Empowering Rift is usually a 30% buff, but in Prestige Nightfalls, it's only a 20% buff, or 1.2 times. So that means we'll get 28,217 damage. And finally, the last buff we could add is Box Breathing, which is actually a perk on the EP Sniper itself. With every single previous buff I just mentioned combined, we get a total of 48,371 damage per shot, meaning Box Breathing on the EP Sniper is roughly a 1.71 times damage buff. Multiplying all of these buffs together brings us roughly to an 11.54 times total damage buff. It's a tiny bit higher if you want to go to a farther decimal place. I killed the boss with just 9 shots from the sniper. Not even all my shots were crits, and I even shot a second too early before the Tractor Cannon buff was applied. The fact that all these buffs stacked up means you can take out a Prestige Nightfall boss with 9 shots is absolutely insane. But what about the Whisper of the Worm? This whole time we've been using the Escalation Protocol Sniper, but the Whisper of the Worm is really powerful, so I'm kind of interested to see how it stacks up against the EP Sniper. Well, unfortunately we won't be able to stack the Tractor Cannon with it because the Whisper is solar, so we'd be losing out on a 50% damage buff. But we should still test it anyway to see just how powerful this thing is. We'll put on Solar Singe, Heavyweight, Empowering Rift, Melting Point, and the Whisper's Box Breathing perk. Now, Box Breathing for the Whisper is actually different than Box Breathing for the EP Sniper. I went to one of those lost sectors on Mars to test this out. So here I got 8,328 for a crit, and then after I let Box Breathing activate, I got 10,827 damage, which is actually a 30% buff. So while the EP Sniper gets a 70% damage buff from the perk, the Whisper only gets 30%. So this means you can reach a maximum multiplier of 5.85 times using Whisper of the Worm and all the possible buffs you can apply to it. Again, I don't have the footage of this test in the Pyramidion, so I did it in the Prestige Garden World instead, and of course the base damage of the Whisper is still going to be the same no matter what Prestige Nightfall you do it in. So the base damage I got here is 10,624. So multiply that by all the possible buffs combined, which is 5.85 times, and one single shot from the Whisper of the Worm does 62,147 damage. So the Whisper can receive a total buff of 5.58 times versus the EP Sniper that can receive a total buff of 11.5 times. That is double the buff you can get with a Whisper, yet the Whisper still out damages the EP Sniper by 13,770 damage per shot. That is actually insane. Not to mention with the Whisper, if you hit all precision shots, you basically have infinite ammo. No other weapon in the game can deliver that much damage for basically an infinite amount of time. Things like the EP shotgun can deliver a ton of burst damage, but runs out pretty quickly. With the Whisper of the Worm, you can keep up that damage for as long as you can shoot the target. Now, if you've kept up with Destiny 2 news recently, you'll know that unfortunately the Escalation Protocol Shoddy and Sniper are being both locked to solar damage when the weapon slot changes happen on August 28th. So that means no more stacking those weapons with the tractor cannon. But it won't be all bad because we'll actually be getting the EP shotgun in the secondary slot, completely unchanged besides the element. So Trench Barrel will still be a 50% buff, and we'll have that in the secondary slot on top of using something like Whisper of the Worm. I'm not so sure about the Sniper, but I don't see why it wouldn't be in the secondary slot as well. So if anything, will be more powerful when the new update drops, because right now you have to choose between a shotgun and a sniper. It'll be pretty fun to test out all the new weapons in Forsaken, and if we get any more different buffs that we can stack, I cannot wait to test them out. Thank you very much for watching, everyone, and I'll see you all in the next video.